Hello and welcome to Trainspotting. In this episode, Mark stops at a pit for a look at the china clay industry along the branch lines of Cornwall, whilst I take a pit stop at a state-of-the-art depot with modern ways of servicing a brand new fleet. I also get to see the largest rail crane in the country swing into action, and Mark uncovers a hidden gem in the backwaters of Ireland at the Cavan and Leitrim Railway.
Today I'm in Cornwall, the home of Britain's china clay industry, which still relies heavily on the railways for distribution the length and breadth of the country. And it's because of this that you get freight-only branch lines and sidings like this that normally you never get to see. The number of these branch lines in use today is a tiny fraction of the number that once ran across the Cornish countryside. These provided the hundreds of small drying kilns with sidings where the clay could be loaded into wagons. Although the tracks may have been pulled up a long while ago, the route of these disused branches is still evident from the kiln chimneys sticking up above the tree line. Maurice Dart knows the history of these lines like those on the back of his hand, and he showed me around a disused siding. What relationship have the railways in Cornwall and the clay industry had over the years? They've been quite intertwined.
Oh, very much so, because before the railways came, all the clay had to be transported by horse and horse-drawn wagons, often on poor roads which became deeply rutted in the winter time.
Yeah.
This was labour-intensive and very time-consuming. So as improved methods of drying with pan kilns were brought into use, so the railway network developed with branch lines with sidings coming off them to feed these kilns.
Now this is one of the kilns.
That's
so
right.
What would have happened here? Because there are 4 different levels.
This was Imperial number 2 kiln.
Yeah.
And right at the very top, at the very top, in the back round, there was the pit, which was Imperial Goon Barrow Pit. Then from the pit, it came down to the next level where the clay went to the press house to get it into a press cake, about 30% moisture. This was chopped up and loaded onto a trolley, and the trolley was wheeled out to the next level, and that was the pan of the kiln. The hot gases from furnaces at the far end ran underneath. After about 3 days it would be dried and it would be loaded by pick and shovel out over onto the linny. The linny is the storage area, this level.
So wagons basically would have come up here.
Wagons would have come into this siding, and the siding serving the next kiln up came outside it and ran around the corner to this kiln.
To that kiln, I see. What sort of locos would have worked these branch lines?
Well, these lines, a lot of them had the Great Western pannier tanks, and before that saddle tanks.
Yeah.
This particular line was very rate restricted and had very lightweight engines on it. And because it was so severely graded, they had an engine on each end of the train. The tendency now is to run fewer trains but longer trains. And this, of course, is more efficient. You may have to spend 2 hours waiting for a train, but when it comes, it's worth seeing.
Imerys are the largest producers of china clay in Cornwall, and Ivor Bowditch, their community and public relations manager, explained to me how the clay is extracted.
As you can see, we have a high-pressure water cannon washing the clay out of the clay-bearing granite. The stream that you see running back carries a mixture of clay together with sand and mica, the other 2 minerals associated with the granite. Right. And behind me we have a pump lifting that stream into a mechanical sand classifier where we remove the sand and the small stones. The larger boulders of rock, which are non-clay bearing, are being removed by the loading shovel and will be taken away by dump truck. Right. Leaving the pit, we will have a mixture of clay and mica, which will firstly go through a thickening stage where we can recover the water, and then the liquid clay and mica go into a network of pipelines, almost 200 miles in total, which will take the clay on to the next stage, the refining stage.
So then you have this dry clay, and what's done with it? Is that when it's distributed by road and by rail?
Yes, the areas that you've seen where loading is undertaken, these are adjacent to the drying plants. Loading will be from the bulk store arranged by a front-end loader, which will then load either into rail or into road. And we're moving almost 1 million tonnes of clay annually by rail.
The railways are used to transport the clay either north to the West Midlands or Scotland for the pottery and paper industries, or the short run down to one of the 2 purpose-built docks on the Cornish coast. We were lucky enough to be allowed into Foy Harbour to see an EWS Class 66 bring in a rake of CDAs. These are the wagons used to transport the dry clay. An automatic unloader has been built which uses what's known as a beetle. This grabs the front wagon and pulls it through the shed. Levers are then positioned to release the clay at just the right moment. A traverser is then used to carry the empty CDA wagon to an adjacent siding, where it will wait with others to be collected. The clay is then transferred by conveyor belt either directly into a waiting ship or into one of the temporary storage sheds. We've heard that there were miles and miles of lines 20, 30 years ago, but they've been closed down. How many are left now for just China clay use?
There are basically three. We use the main line between Plymouth and Penzance to bring in clay from the operations that we have in Devon on the southwestern side of Dartmoor. And then we use part of the Newquay branch line, bringing clay in from the rocks drying location, and we use a dedicated mineral line which comes off the main line near St Austell and runs up to Parkendilloch near St Denis. So there are basically three lines, and two of those lines are also for passenger traffic.
And you find rail really an easy way of distributing around the UK?
Rail is hugely important to us, and here in Cornwall, the movement of China clay represents a staggering 99% of freight movements in Cornwall are clay related. So we like to think that the clay industry makes a contribution to keeping the rail network in Cornwall.
With the massive investment in the railways, modern trains need modern methods of servicing. I'm here at Northam Depot in Southampton, purpose-built by Siemens to service the new Desiro fleet for South West trains, and it takes maintenance to a new level. To get an overview of the project, I spoke to David Wilson, Siemens Transportation's UK manager.
The depot came about as a result of the contract we got with South West Trains going back to 2001, which was for the supply of 155 trains, together with a complete maintenance and after-sales for them.
And why Southampton?
I mean, we came to Southampton primarily because it was on the route, it was a good location for getting trains back, but also it has a highly skilled workforce, which meant that we could recruit the relatively sophisticated skills that we need to maintain a modern-day train. The train itself is a modular design, which means that the train has equipment on it that can be very quickly removed, so the train actually spends the absolute minimum amount of time being maintained and the maximum amount of time out in passenger revenue-earning service.
At the core of its operations, Northam has a computer-based monitoring system. This is used in two ways. As a train arrives on site, its unique identity coding is picked up by a track-based balise, and its position in the depot can then be monitored at every stage from the central control room. The second benefit is that the maintenance history of every train in the fleet can be kept on file. The first thing that happens to all trains on arrival is that they're sent through the washer. Knowing the identity of the train and when it was last washed helps ensure that it receives the most efficient washing program. As well as being clever, the washer is also eco-friendly, with 75% of the water being recycled. A squeaky clean train is now sent to either the outdoor sidings for interior cleaning or directly into one of the maintenance bays. At over 200 metres long and with 4 bays, the shed can hold up to 8 4-car trains, and you can see how it's been designed to provide a bright, clean, efficient working environment. Before any work starts on a Desiro, its internal TMS or train management system is downloaded. This provides a computer-based log of the train's recent performance and is combined with the data from its service history to enable both necessary repair work and regular servicing to be carried out in one visit. The way that this is done has also been thoroughly modernised, as Eddie Milligan, the production manager, explains.
The way the depot's laid out allows us to do a pit stop approach. We have access platforms at all the levels that we need them. We have a bogie drop, which allows major components to be changed. The components we take off that have defects on them are actually sent away for repair.
And give us an idea of what's modular on the train.
Everything below sole bar on the train itself is classified as modular. Even the bogies themselves that the coaches ride on are classified as a module. Then we've got brake units, traction units, air conditioning units, compressor units. They're all modular.
And how has that changed the amount of time that trains are in?
it's taken the time down by at least 75%, and we're able to change a bogie in, for instance, 2 hours.
And you've got plenty of other procedures in place here, for example, being able to let guys get on with trains without being worried about anything.
Oh yeah, most certainly. It's imperative that the safety of the staff is maintained. Once the staff have used their data key, they all have a unique data key and they're trained to use it. Before they go on the train, they have to actually log onto a road. This ensures that the train can't change its status, or its status can't be changed without their authority. So this is a very, very safe system, and it's easy to use as well.
And you've worked at other depots. What does make this place so unique?
It's all the modern systems. Yeah, I can say how clean it is and how new it is, but it is designed for the train maintenance. Yeah, and it's most traditional maintenance depots have been there 100 years. Yeah, and you maintain within that facility. This depot is special because it's designed to maintain the D0 unit.
And how long is this one going to be visiting for?
This will be released for service this evening. Yeah, so it'll be stopped for about 6 to 7 hours, and then it'll be returned to service tomorrow morning.
So another example of a nice, clean pit stop.
That's right, yes.
3 more D0s fresh from their pit stop and ready to go back into passenger service. And with the aid of constant computer monitoring, South West Trains will be able to give their passengers the most reliable service possible. Got to move a 50-foot S&C signal and control panel weighing over 20 tonnes? Then you need one of these, a Kirov 810C rail crane, capable of lifting up to 100 tonnes with a maximum reach of 20 metres. Its arrival has revolutionised the world of track maintenance. As there are only 2 of them operating in this country at the moment, they're very much in demand, and this particular Kirov is operated by Grant Plant, part of Grant Rail. It travels the length and breadth of the country, helping with track relaying projects, trackside construction and emergency lifts. It can't travel very far under its own power, so it's pulled, usually at night, by an EWS loco and can be moved at speeds of up to 60 miles an hour. I met up with it early one morning just outside Coventry Station, where it was still in travelling trim, and very happy to show off his pride and joy was Steve Shields, the crane manager.
We actually have to set it up, which takes us about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and then once it's set up, away we go.
All right, well, let's let you and your boys get on with it and we'll see what it takes to prep it up.
Okay then.
The first part of the preparation is to attach the counterweight, which travels on its own wagon, to the rear of the arm. The crane is unable to lift anything until this is in place. As the crane is to spend the day carrying S&C panels, the hook is connected to the 18-metre-long spine lifting beam, which also travels on its own wagon. Once unloaded, the 2 empty wagons are parked up in an adjacent siding before the real work gets underway. On this particular project, the South Coventry point system is being completely relayed, with the important work being done at the weekends when the line can be closed. That doesn't mean that the Kirov is redundant during the week though, as it's used to unload S&C panels as they arrive on site and move them to a position close to where they'll be needed. The S&C panels are lengths of track containing complicated signal and control sections that are pre-constructed before being brought to site. Is it a lot different than a normal road crane that we see?
The basic idea is the same. The differences come within the technology of the crane. This statically picks up the load, places it in front of it, and then will travel along the infrastructure to relay or replace the load.
Fairly unique, isn't it?
It is in this country, yes. The old cranes were all dials and fixed and lights, whereas this one's all new computer technology.
And what can that technology help the operator with?
It helps with height settings, slow limits, and the total configuration of the crane when it's lifting loads. It can tell him what load he's lifting, it can tell him what his hydraulics are doing, it can tell him what his electrics are doing, it can tell him all the radius and every other angle that it can tell him. Just about anything but a cup of tea really.
I was going to say, we've seen it going up and down the track and lifting track panels. It's not its only purpose, is it?
No, as I said, we can also do bridge work and gantry work, but I would say about 80 to 90% of the time, S&C relay and track panels is what we use it for.
There are a couple of things that this crane is capable of that I thought were really quite amazing. The first is its ability to self-level. Once the load has been picked up and the stabilisers pulled in, the computer activates levelling servos that ensure that the weight of the load is evenly distributed across all of the axles before it moves along the track. On most cranes, the back end of the crane has to rotate in response to the arm at the front. The Kirov, however, can go into swivel mode, which keeps the back end in line with the body of the crane whilst the front slews. In this mode, the weight limit is restricted, but means that the crane can operate in very tight spaces.
And I've got to say, this looks like a really nice piece of kit. It's a big toy, isn't it?
You could say that, yeah. The guys and myself, we tend to treat it as our own. I can give you a perfect example. Was an old guy who'd been on the railway quite some time, and he saw the Kirov in action, lifting a very heavy load across the station platform, and he says to me, "That is awesome, man, that is awesome."
You may not have seen one of these before, and up until today, neither had I. It's a very primitive track inspection bicycle. Two sturdy men would sit here with an inspector on the front, and he'd gaze down and check the track. And if you look at the track, it gives you a clue as to where we are today. 5'3" gauge, which can only mean we're in Ireland. And this is one of the more unusual and rare exhibits of the Cavan and Leitrim Railway. It is the hard work and perseverance of just one man that has saved the Cavan and Leitrim from vanishing into obscurity. And that man is Michael Kennedy. Now, Michael, the Cavan and Leitrim Railway is not a broad gauge railway, is it?
No, it's 3-foot gauge.
And why was it built? What's the history of the line?
Well, the line was built to help the west of Ireland, to bring prosperity. And at the time, the British government gave money to the companies that built the railways.
So what's the history of the Cavan and Leitrim then? Because that wasn't really a passenger line, was it?
No, not at all. It would carry goods. And the two things they carried were coal from Arigna and cattle from the Midlands going out to the Irish ports through the north. Mm. Thousands and thousands of cattle.
And how long have you had this place?
About 10 years.
What made you buy it?
Just the love of railways and to do something right, and to show people exactly what happened over 100 years ago. Now, these are the old coal wagons from Arigna, which went down the mine. And this is an original one.
How old would one of these be?
Well, you're talking, the mines ran for over 200 years, so there were 200 years of work. But again, they've been rebuilt and rebuilt.
And this is a 2-foot gauge, isn't it?
This is 2-foot gauge.
And were all these wagons 2-foot gauges in the mines?
No, there were different mine owners, and each mine owner had a different gauge in case the other one would go over the hill and steal his wagons.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a bit like painting a sheep.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I like this little loco. What's this?
This is a little Hudson Hunslet from the 1940s.
Yep.
And it was built for the War Department in England and never used. And they actually run.
They still run?
They still run, and all I've got to do is put my foot on there and there. Oh, you like to hop up, we go for a spin.
It's not just railway history that Michael has been trying to preserve. He's also amassed an amazing collection of old buses and planes that he's saved from the scrap heap. Now, Michael, this looks like a bus on railway wheels.
And that's what it actually is. It's been a bus converted to run on rail as a carriage.
Where did it come from?
It was first built in 1955, an AEC Regal bus for the Great Northern Railway. And when the Great Northern went in 58, the road stock of the Great Northern went to the CIE, and they ran it on the Irish roads until the early 1970s when Bord na Móna got it, our Irish turf board.
And why was it used by Bord na Móna?
To bring the men out onto the bogs. In the early 60s, they had hundreds of men working on the bogs.
And you've got another one here as well. What's the story behind this one?
Well, this is also made from old buses, and it was built in Inchicore in 1952 for the West Clare section of CIE. And it's actually made from putting two 1930s buses together on a carriage chassis.
And this is what you use to travel your passengers up and down the line today?
Yeah, you saw the old Fowler pulling it out the line today with passengers aboard.
But as beautiful as the Fowler may be, Michael, it's not your pride and joy, is it?
No, there's only one engine that's number 1, and that's Drummond. And it's an 042 Kerr Stewart over here at the shed. And they've started to steam it up. She should be ready now.
And it's your pride and joy?
Oh, yeah.
So how many actual locos are left from the Cavan and Leitrim Railway?
Well, 2 are still in existence. One's in America, Lady Edith's in Alair State Park, New Jersey, and Kathleen's in Belfast.
So where did this loco come from?
This one was originally built in 1916, as you can see here, and built in Stoke on Trent.
But it's a real mishmash of all different parts, isn't it?
Yeah, but it all looks right. The boiler came out of a hotel in Bristol, was a laundry boiler.
From a hotel?
From a hotel, yeah. The whistle's up along an underground train.
Oh, show me the whistle. Where's the whistle?
The whistle's over here. Blow the whistle, lads. Just up there.
Right. And one thing I noticed is all the Cavan and Leitrim locos had cattle...
Cow catchers.
Cow catchers.
And there was a thing from the Wild West. All the American engines had them out on the prairies. So the buffaloes came across the tracks. They wouldn't derail the trains.
Can I have a go on it?
Yeah, and if you want to come out the line with it, you can.
I'd love to. Go on, let's go.
Okay.
One thing I've noticed is it's all wood, no coal. Why's that?
Yeah, because we get the wood for nothing, and it doesn't cost us anything then in fuel, and it's cheap to run.
How much track have you got?
About half a mile.
And you have plans to extend it?
Yeah, we're trying to get to Mohill, which is the next town down the line.
It's a bit of a one-man crusade that you're on here, isn't it?
It is, but we've got my volunteers behind me, and my helpers.
Well, I admire your hard work and your dedication, and I wish you all the best in getting the Cavan and Leitrim up and running again.
Yeah, we're still here and we're still going.
Good.
That bike thing you were on was really smart. How fast did it go?
Only about 10 miles an hour.
10 miles an hour. So how long would it take you to cycle from here to Crewe?
About 2 days, 14 hours.
Wow, but if I got on and pedalled as well, we could do it in half the time.
No, there'd be 3 times the weight.
What do you mean?
And it'd upset my rhythm. And then there'd be...
The last surviving manufacturer of trains gets a visit next Friday at the same time, 8 o'clock. But next tonight on H&L, Tommy Walsh makes it big.